Greetings and welcome. I'm the host and moderator for today, Dawn Charleston-Green, the creator of Dawn of a New Day 365 live blog. And I welcome you to our third conversation. Those of you who have joined us or watched previously recall that we have had conversations between women, both Black and white, about the state of our nation regarding the global pandemic, as well as the pandemic of racism. If you missed it, it was a very insightful and thought-provoking conversation that included a medical doctor, educator, assistant DA, child advocate, recent college graduate, a mental health professional, military veteran, a pastor, community activist, and yours truly. That was well worth the 2 hours that we spent having the conversation. Then in our second conversation, we addressed Men's Health and PTSD Awareness Month, a conversation that we call Not All Scars Can Be Seen, a conversation about men's mental health and its effects on the family. Two brave and amazing women shared their personal stories about losing their husbands to suicide as it related to PTSD and improperly treated mental health. We also had my husband and another young married couple talk about living with and acknowledging the importance of identifying and dealing with mental health head on. This was a very candid conversation. If you or someone you know may be interested in watching those conversations, you can find them on YouTube at Dawn of a New Day 365, simply titled The Conversation. Today's conversation, I submit to you, is back to school in a pandemic. Is it working? Is it working? And as always, we have a great panel of guests with us today that include professionals in the field of education, as well as parents and students living the experience, whether good or just, let's say, challenging. Because we're not exactly live to you, I don't have any ground rules to put out. However, if you're watching later and you do have some questions, please put them in the comments and just put a Q in front of a capital Q in front of your question so that myself or one of our panel persons can reach out to you and provide you with that information or those resources. So I thank you. So I thank you for joining the conversation. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I want to introduce our panel to you. First, I'm going to start with Ms. LaToya Jackson Barnett. Mrs. Barnett is an elementary school assistant principal in the state of Georgia with 22 years of experience in elementary and middle school education. She is currently providing oversight for both virtual and in-person learning. She is married with 3 adult children, 2 in college, 1 heading next year, and has her first grandbaby on the way. So we're excited for her. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Barnett. Anasia is so excited. Later we'll have joining us, and Anasia help me see when she comes on. We'll have also Miss Wilhelmina Purvis Bagsby. Miss Bagsby is a high school guidance counselor as well as a parent of a high school sophomore student in the state of Texas. Miss Bagsby is currently working in person, but her daughter is receiving virtual instruction. Miss Bagsby has years of experience and she is married to her husband of 20 years. And in addition to their high school sophomore, they have a college junior who is doing a hybrid schedule of in-person and virtual. Then next we have Dr. Brittany Bush joining us today. Dr. Bush is currently a middle school teacher in the state of Georgia. She has 6 years of experience in K-5, as well as collegiate level instruction experience. This is her first year to teach middle school, and she is serving as a reading intervention specialist. Dr. Bush is currently teaching in person at her middle school, but is not providing college instruction at this time. However, she did so virtually last semester. Dr. Bush has previously received the honor of Teacher of the Year, was most recently awarded the Shiro Award in Education, and has also published a book entitled A Fighting Chance on the academic and domestic support that foster children are receiving and the effects it has on their education. So Miss Brittany, Dr. B, she also has a 2-year-old daughter. And so we welcome and thank you for joining us today. Then we have Jamal Davis. Jamal Davis is a first-year college student from South Carolina, but attending college in Georgia. He says that he is attending in-person blended schedule. Jamal is a journalism major, and his hobbies include singing, acting, and writing. Thank you, Jamal. And then we have with us Dr. and Mrs. DJ and Lindsay Dycus. Dr. DJ Dycus is a college professor of English and Humanities in the state of Georgia with 23 years of experience. He is currently teaching virtually as he and his family were exposed just recently to COVID-19. Previously, of the 2 days he had taught this semester, he taught one in person and then one virtually. When I asked Dr. DJ about his interesting fact, he shared that he taught himself how to juggle by reading a book when he was in the 8th grade. So thank you, Dr. DJ Dycus, for joining us. And aside from him liking to juggle or having that as his skill, he's also married to Lindsay. And they have 2 girls, 3rd and 6th grade. Their 6th grader is an in-person private school, and their 3rd grader is virtual in public school. As previously mentioned with DJ, their family is currently quarantined due to exposure to COVID-19. Thankfully, they are all healthy and doing well and just waiting their test results. So thank you both, Dr. DJ and Lindsay, for joining us today. Then I have with me my sidekick today, come a little closer, Anasia Green. Anasia is a 5th grade elementary student and my daughter, and she is so excited to have the opportunity to be a part of the conversation. Y'all, she's been trying to be a part of the conversation for a long time. And so yesterday when I told her that she was going to be a part of the conversation, she wanted to make sure she was her best self. So please welcome Anasia. She is currently learning from home. And she actually prefers it. Now that's her opinion, but she actually prefers it. But her hobbies are singing and dancing, riding her bike and scooter, and spending time talking to her best friend, as well as getting attention from her daddy and her big brother. So please welcome Anasia. Thank you for being here, Anasia. All right, next we have Miss Ashley Manker. Miss Manker is a 1st grade elementary school teacher in the state of Georgia. This is her 2nd year teaching, and she is providing instruction in person. Her hobbies include spending time with friends and family, dancing, and writing. So thank you so much, Miss Manker, for being with us today. Next, we have Miss Treska Haley Mitchell. She's an instructional coordinator at an elementary school in Louisiana. She's currently on leave, however. She holds a master's degree in educational leadership. She has 2 sons, ages 18 and 15. Ms. Haley is has devoted, 22 years in the field of education. She spent 10 years in the classroom, 5 years as an assistant principal, 4 years as a principal, and the last 3 years as an instructional coordinator. Her 15-year-old is currently studying virtually, and her 18-year-old is a freshman in college on campus, but predominantly virtual learning. So thank you so much, Ms. Treska Haley Mitchell, for always standing in the gap for me. Thank you. Then up next we have Miss Felicia Jones. I have her down as Miss Morris. This is my first cousin. She is a high school math teacher in the state of Texas. She has 13 years of experience. She is currently teaching virtually. She's a single mother of 4 children, ages 15, 11, 8, and 6. Currently, they are attending school in person. Is that correct? Virtually, but 4 different schools. Right. Okay. All right. So currently the children are, and I'm interested to learn what that is like. Teaching at home virtually and then having 4 virtual learners at home with you, but we'll learn more about that later. Okay. Then we have Dezmond Spivey. Mr. Spivey is a middle school science teacher in Louisiana, as well as a middle school and high school football and track coach. He has 7 years of experience. He is currently teaching in person as well as participating in football practices. In addition to teaching and coaching, Coach Spivey is an active father with 3 children, 10, 5, and 1. Both his 10 and 15-year-old are virtual learners currently. Coach Spivey can also be found refereeing baseball tournaments and snapping photos with his photography business. So thank you, Coach Spivey.
You gotta change that. I don't have a 15-year-old. The 10-year-old.
That's a 10 and a 5-year-old. Excuse me, I'm trying to do too much. Okay, thank you. You quickly corrected me. Okay. All right. Then we have Aaliyah Williams. Aaliyah is a senior in high school. She is currently attending in person. She works and she's involved in some other activities. She enjoys music, especially singing. Aaliyah's plans after high school are to attend an HBCU. So we are so glad, Aaliyah, that you joined us today. Thank you so much. And I think I covered everybody. Okay. All right. So, and I don't let me put you off guard because it's just us now, so it's not the live. But Miss Manker, and I know you're just like, what? I want to actually start with you. And I'm starting with you because, and not to put you on the spot, but I want you to just kind of talk to us about how last year, you being a first-year teacher, because in your bio, you said this is on your second year teaching. So that means in your first year, you experienced the pandemic. The first year teaching is already just like a year of just like, have I figured out what I'm doing? And then the pandemic happened. So if you unmute yourself and just kind of, would you share with us just kind of how that was for you as a first-year teacher, experiencing a pandemic in your second semester?
Yeah, so hey everybody. Like she said, this is my second year teaching, but my first year teaching was different. I never ever expected something like this to happen. So it was like the middle of March, March 2020 is when we had to switch from in person to home. That was a big adjustment that we had to do. The students, they stopped going to school and they learn from home. So then I had to learn some things online as well. So it's not just the students learning, but I had to learn too. And not just me, but the parents. So I'm messaging the parents saying, please bear with me. We didn't know this was going to happen. I'm learning just like you. And literally I had to take it one day at a time, learning the new online, how to get homework to them, how to message the parents. All of that was new. So that was a big adjustment. And don't get me wrong, it was pressure. I'm not going to lie. It was a lot of pressure. It was a little bit of stress too, but I can say the team that I work with last year was amazing. We had to work together. There was no way we couldn't do it by ourselves. We had to split lesson plans. You teach this, you teach this. And send it out to our students. We had to also be creative. So we had to send out videos for them to watch. We had to upload worksheets for them to do. And some of the students, they did really well. We were actually surprised, but the students last year did really well with being at home. So it was an adjustment. It's a first year that I truly will never forget, honestly.
I know. And so did you feel like you, well, let me just ask, so what type of support you received? You were talking about just your team coming together. That was the biggest support, and just trying to step in for each other?
Oh yeah, my teammates were a big support. I'm telling you, it's important who you work with. My teammates were the biggest support because we helped each other, and we were literally a team. We split up lesson plans. We had to do, what we had to do. So like I would take science, someone else would take math, and we would, go back and forth with that. Sometimes we had to record as teaching, and so we would take turns with that. The instructional specialist at my school was a big help as well. They would help us with different online websites for the kids to go to, just in their leisure time as well.
Okay, good deal. All right, and so I'm using a script, y'all, so y'all know that. But next I want to go to Miss Barnett, an assistant principal. So from your perspective, or should I say, what has been your experience from last year to this year? And what are some things that you as an administrator would have considered supporting a teacher like Ms. Manker?
Good morning, everyone. I truly, when she said it was, you know, what happened in March last year, we had, of course, no control over it.
Mhm.
But I feel like the change has been, we went into it blindly in March, not prepared, not knowing what to do. Whereas this year, having to start the year virtually and in person, we were better prepared. We put things in place and programs and things for the teachers to use. Everybody is being consistent with the platforms that they're using. So it has been a much better transition this time versus in March. We didn't know how children would be able to participate in March. Some had technology at home, some did not. Some had the basic internet package. So they would say, yes, we have Wi-Fi, but it wasn't strong enough to, handle the capabilities of what they needed to perform classroom expectations. So it was a big transition. This year has been much smoother. The amount of children that we have at home, of course, is less, but it's trying to handle the children in the building as well as the children at home. So I am administrator in person and administrator for the Learn from Home children. So you're handling dual roles as well.
Now, have you found that difficult, having to manage those dual roles? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
The teachers still come to you, especially with the Learn from Home this year. I think the rigor changed, and it is more difficult than what they had encountered in the spring.
Right.
So a lot of the parents weren't ready for the face-to-face learning that we presented with them this fall, because a lot of that didn't take place in the spring. So it has been more communicating with the parents, explaining the process, what the expectations daily are for your child. So it's a lot of phone calls, a lot of parent communication. But the ones who have adjusted well and gotten the hang of it love it. And the ones that said this is too much, they politely bring them back to school.
Because you almost had this one over here last week. and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it was very different from last year. Last year with her being at home, I basically was the teacher. I had the work, but I did the instruction. So now this year, with her virtually being with her own teacher, I don't know. I said last year I was an uncertified 4th grade teacher, and this year I'm an unpaid 5th grade parapro, because I'm having to work with the, if her internet goes down or if something happens, then that's the things that I have to, kind of do. And those are not things that I'm necessarily comfortable with. So for me, that was that stress factor. And then just trying to make sure that she was engaged with Nasia, sometimes being somewhat distracted, and we talk about that, right? So for her, having to get her to pin her teacher, because for her, still having all the screens and being able to see what the other students were doing was still such a distraction for her. So as a parent, trying to stay, in the background so that the teacher can, be at the forefront, but then also still being able to provide that support for her. So it's just kind of hard when you're actually at home, but somebody else is kind of in charge. That has been the difficult, I think, part for me. So, so thank you for sharing it from your perspective, and thank you for working with parents like me who were in the struggle.
But you love it.
That remains to be seen. She said you love it. I said that remains to be seen. But I wanted to also ask you, what would you have done to support a teacher like Miss Manker in her first year of teaching that would have gone through something like this? What are some of the supports that could have been put in place from your perspective?
Just I think a more in-depth knowledge of the technology and the programs and the resources available to her, and coming up with better means of communication. If she was, a first year teacher, you're trying to learn the curriculum, and what your expectations are as a teacher. And now, she had a great team. I know her team, she did have a great team to work with, which was awesome in the fact that they shared plans and were able to work together. So I think that took a load off of her plate, knowing that she didn't have to do all subject areas on her own. So I think that was a great resource for her. But just knowing that, she has her administrator support, and if she has any parent, because a lot of times I had parents tell me as the administrator, I have to go to work. I have to be in my job 8 hours a day. I'm not at home. I can't sit there and make sure Johnny's doing what he's supposed to do. And sometimes as a teacher, that's frustrating because you know what you are supposed to do. And when the students may not be able to do what they need to do on their end, you get worried about how is that going to affect me? You know, how is that going to look on my evaluation if students aren't doing what they need to do? But just assuring the teacher that I have her back or we have their back and we understand that this was unforeseen territory and we're all learning together.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. So that, I mean, that makes sense. It definitely does. Dr. Bush, you shared recently in a post your experience as an educator. And you shared that oftentimes we think about returning to school from the perspective of just kind of school supplies, you know, everybody on the outside. But this year, it was much more than that. And you kind of talked about the PPE or, you know, whether you had it or whether you didn't have it. Can you talk to that point just a little bit and tell us now what your experience has been like for your middle school?
Yes, and let me apologize for my special guest. You know, when you have a toddler, sometimes things are unpredictable. So hopefully she'll stay quiet while I'm trying to speak. But well, let me start by saying last year, I was at an elementary school when all of this happened. I was in the same role as reading interventionist. So I didn't have like a homeroom, so to speak. So my experience was a little bit different because I didn't have a set of children that I had to see on a regular basis. But our school, even though we went virtual as a county, my school couldn't go virtual because 75% of our students either didn't have computer access or they didn't have access to the internet.
Wow.
So we had to create packets for those students to send home. But again, you can't really monitor if they're doing the work. So then it became, well, how are we going to get these packets? How are we going to get these packets from them? But towards the middle, I guess, of the pandemic, they said that we couldn't even get the packets from them because of possible contamination and things of that nature. So we really felt like we lost the end of instruction because we didn't have a way of reaching them or a way of getting that information from them So I was a little concerned as to how it was going to look this year. So when we got the program that we were going to use this year, we started training over the summer, and we really didn't know if they were going to send us back or we were going to be all virtual. Honestly, I was hoping that we would be all virtual for the simple fact that, you know, I have a young daughter. I also, you know, we're in the process of building a home, so I'm staying with my older parents, and I was concerned about their health. So while we may be doing the right things, everybody else is not doing the right thing. And you can't control who comes in and out of your classroom. And I really felt like as a county, they didn't do enough to protect us. When we talked about, you know, well, what PPE or things that they're going to give us, we got a spray bottle of disinfectant and that's it. We didn't get face masks. We didn't get shields. We didn't get, I think only the elementary schools got the dividers, and they just got those last week. And so I was concerned, and a lot of teachers were concerned. You know, they talk about the mental health of children, but I know so many teachers that have been prescribed anxiety medication just to get through this time. And so, you know, there was never an email sent to us about what we felt, how we felt. You know, parents got the email about, well, what were your thoughts on going back to school? How do you feel about that? But teachers never got that. And some teachers got to choose to be online, but me, in the position that I'm in, I didn't get that choice. So, you know, I felt like I was being forced into a position and not really being able to say no, because of course you need your job. But at the same time, how do I do my job and protect my family and not have the stuff that I need to feel safe? So when I did put the post on Facebook, It got quite a response, more of a response than I expected it to get, but just the outpouring of support from the community. I got so many donations for supplies, wipes, things that I need to keep my kids safe. Because I think about the kids in the classroom too. You know, some of them come and they don't have masks, but we only get one mask per child. So if they lose that mask, then what? You know, so I needed extra masks. I needed extra cleaning supplies because that one bottle of solution is going to be gone by the end of the week if I'm supposed to clean in between each class. And that's all we got. So I am very thankful for my support system because, I mean, I was able to donate to other people because I got so much stuff. But I really think we just have to do a better job at not just considering the kids, but also considering the teachers, because we're the ones on the front line. And, you know, if we don't feel safe, then I can't properly do my job if I'm worried or concerned about my health, your health, and all of that. So, yeah, that's pretty much what my post was about.
Okay. Well, I'm glad definitely that you were able to get the support and everything that you need. And I know sometimes when we write posts, we're kind of pouring out our hearts, but I'm glad so oftentimes that there are people who are listening and also people who it resonated with, who felt just like you did at the time. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being, honest about it, because I think you helped more people. Because sometimes when we feel a certain way, sometimes we may think that we're selfish, or am I the only person feeling this way? And just kind of having that other village that says, I hear you and I feel you and I feel the same way, just kind of helps you to continue through it. So I'm definitely glad that you shared that and you were able to get.
And the one thing you said was about the selfishness. I just wanted I didn't want parents to feel like we don't want to teach our kids, because that's not it. It has nothing to do with me not wanting to be in the classroom. Because I would rather be in the classroom teaching online. Teaching online is hard. I would much rather be in the classroom. But at the end of the day, just like, they're thinking about their families, we have families too. So we have to think about them too. And it really had nothing to do with us trying to be selfish.
Right.
We were concerned.
Right. As well, you should have been. I understand. So I'm going to go ahead and segue with Miss Mitchell, who is filling in with me today. Can you kind of speak to this? I know when I did your introduction, I talked about you being on leave right now. Can you share some of that? Does some of the things that Dr. Bush has shared, do those things resonate with you?
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm doing double duty. I'm still trying to get us on live for Facebook and paying attention and totally agreeing. So I'm sorry. I've been trying to do 2 or 3 different things. Absolutely. When she was speaking, I was in total agreement because I am on leave right now due to being in a pandemic and also dealing with the anxiety aspect of having to go back into the classroom and keep myself safe, along with keeping my family safe as well. And so I made the choice, a very difficult choice, because I've been in education. This is going into my 22nd year. And it was very difficult to make that decision. But I absolutely had to put myself first as well as my family, and I chose to go on leave. Financially, it's not the best thing, probably emotionally, because that is my career as of right now. But I also knew that the anxiety of worried about becoming ill or my family becoming ill was a great stressor for me. So I had to make that choice, which is why I'm at home. And I am, I am a teacher in my heart, regardless to if you go into admin or coaching or what have you, or curriculum, you are always an educator at heart. You're always that teacher. And so that teacher heart in me is worried about my coworkers. I'm worried about the students. I am. And I just think that as a nation, educators are not okay right now. We are not okay. And I think We are the forgotten heroes. We were the sung heroes in March and April, but now we have been tossed back under the rug, as in, just go do your job. This is what you're getting paid to do. But if you want to be honest, a medical professional signs up to save lives. They take an oath to deal with things of such. That is not what teachers do. That is not what we signed up for. We are to educate the entire child. But none of us on this screen have experienced educating children during a pandemic, a disease which has been proven to take the lives of people and to damage organs for the rest of their lives. That's very difficult. And that's much different from the flu, which media and some public would have you believe that it's the same thing. And it's not. It's just not. So I definitely understood where Dr. Bush was coming from. I also could relate to Ms. Barnett as well, from an administrator, because when we left in March, we had no idea what we were going to do. My district chose a totally new platform to come back into. So not only did teachers and administrators have to deal with teaching and leading during a pandemic, but now you have to learn a new platform in order to deliver that instruction. That was a double whammy, y'all. That is when I said, I know mentally I cannot handle this. It's too much. And it's a lot. I'm hearing daily from teachers about how hard it is. Daily.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being, very transparent about, making that choice. I thank you for being our support over here, because sometimes Google Classroom is not parent friendly. And that was a thing I think that I learned last year when we went to the Learn from Home. I realized that I had not actually provided her the support that she needed while she was in school and doing Google Classroom, because I didn't understand it. So I had to have a learning curve for understanding, where is this material? What platform is it on? How many ways do I need to get to it? And so I was ignorant to that. And so, but once I learned, I was a little bit better. We didn't have to do as much with the uploading and turning in of assignments. So Miss Mitchell has definitely helped us. She's my own call person in FaceTime, like, how do I upload this? What do I need to do? And so she is still, of course, supporting so many people, I think, now in education, from even being at home, for those of us who, have to figure it out and are not okay necessarily with doing it. So I appreciate you for that so much. And so I'm going to go over here to Anasia right now. Anasia, elementary school student, a 5th grader. Wow. She's ready to get to that middle school. That's probably the only time I would probably wish a pandemic, but no, you'll go to the middle school. How do you like your experience with being at home versus being at school?
Well, I like my teacher. She's really nice, and I love having support from my mom. She's helping me get some good grades, and I just love it.
You like it?
I like it much better than going to school.
And so what part is that for you? Not going to school? What was it about school that wasn't the best for you?
Well, I would say having the students, like, if you're doing something, like having all of them talking at the same time.
That was a distraction for you?
And having, like, distractions. Yeah.
So it just worked out better for you?
Worked out better here, and I'm more confident here than going to school, because I can't do school.
So this is something that we've learned and we've grown into. And I had always considered homeschool for whatever reason. And so I guess, this happened, and we really just kind of got where we needed to be with it. And so she has seemed to thrive more here with that individual kind of focus and not having so many of the distractions. So we just have to try to find a way for that. But everybody doesn't feel like that. There are some children who are definitely missing that social component of it, especially from, the high school and middle school, those who are involved in a lot of activities. And she was supposed to be in a play at the high school last spring. And of course, those things got canceled. And so we're trying to figure out what that's going to look like? Is the high school still going to be able to put on the play? How do you still put on the play and social distance? I mean, just the cast themselves, not less the audience. So we don't know what that looks like yet, but I know that for some high school students and things like that, not having that social component has been a lot of a detriment to them. So I want to go ahead and move forward. Lindsay, first of all, glad you and your family are doing well. How was it when you learned that you all had, in fact, been exposed to COVID-19?
The girls, my girls were with their father when he got a phone call that he had been exposed at work. So the girls came home, and thankfully we're all symptom-free and feeling fine. But it's very scary. We've been pretty hardcore quarantined since March. My youngest daughter, who's in 3rd grade, is high risk. She has a very random lung condition that she cannot, she's not any more susceptible to getting COVID than the rest of us, but she is not as likely to respond to treatments if she is to catch that. If it is something that affects her the way her pulmonologist thinks it might. But yeah, it was definitely scary. We definitely have a kind of a heightened sense of anxiety in the house, especially considering how careful we've been. And to come this far and be exposed is just kind of emotionally hard. Disappointing, yeah.
Wow, yeah. So we're praying for you. You know that already. We're praying for you. Her father's having mild symptoms. Thankfully, he's okay. But so far, we're okay over here. So we'll see. Okay. All right. Well, keep me posted, but I'm continuing to pray for you. But Lindsay, can you also speak to what your experience as a parent has been like with having children both in, I know you all are quarantined right now, but having children both in person and in virtual environments, and how you as a family actually made a split decision concerning your children?
So we had made a decision early in the summer. My oldest daughter, who's in 6th grade, has some special learning needs that even public school with her IEP really couldn't meet. It was just too many kids in a classroom for her and herself and what she needs. So we switched her last Christmas to a Montessori school where they just have a smaller classroom and everything is very, very individualized. They were kind enough at the end of last school year, or what would have been the end of the last school year, to say like, hey, next year we are reopening unless we're under a shelter in place from the governor. Here's the things that we're going to do to keep your child safe and keep our doors open. And because they're a small private school, they can go above and beyond CDC recommendations. So we were okay with sending her back because of all of the things that were put in place for her. We haven't felt uncomfortable or unsafe sending her to school, and her being exposed and coming back, and mainly exposing her little sister. We felt pretty good about that. My youngest daughter, who's in 3rd grade, goes to public school, and we had made the decision to have her stay home virtually pretty early in the game. I was looking, before the school system said that they were going to do a virtual option, I was looking at different online schooling options, homeschooling options to see, because it just wasn't safe for her to go back. And our school system in our county actually called it and said everybody's doing virtual learning for at least the first semester. So that made it kind of mandatory for us. But there's been a lot of pushback in the community of people saying, well, kids need to go to school. For us in our house, it works mainly because of our jobs and how flexible they are, and not everybody has that privilege of having flexible jobs in that manner. Also, my oldest daughter is extremely extroverted, and she desperately needs people. She had a counseling session over Zoom yesterday, and the counselor wanted to talk to me afterwards. Be like, so she's telling me that she's like yelling thank you to the delivery person through her bedroom window just to have some social interaction. I was like, yeah, we know. So we're aware.
The rest of us are introverts, and poor Mary Kate has just been like, starved. Like, we're all locking ourselves in our rooms, and Mary Kate's marching up and down the hallway.
Yeah, 3 of the 4 of us are very happily placed in our own corners of the house, and then Mary Kate is desperate to have any kind of interaction. So yeah, but my youngest daughter has, last year when we went virtual learning in our school system, 3rd grade and up gets computers anyway, like that's just part of their education. And then, so she had her teacher, who is an amazing teacher, just do like YouTube videos and do everything that she could do. We didn't have to go pick up packets, which was nice just because of exposure concerns. But I totally was waiting for it just because I can't remember who said it, but like just the population, I wasn't sure that people were going to have computer access, internet access. And as a social worker, I don't like these kids being home. Like, this is really scary from a social worker perspective. I love having teachers have contact with their kids and knowing that those babies are being loved 5 days of the week for 6, 7, 8 hours, depending on the day. So that, I think that's an adjustment, but my youngest, this year now has a computer, or everybody in our school system now has a computer, supposedly. And I think the biggest struggle for her, she's very introverted, so she's happy. She's like your daughter, she's very happy being at home learning. It takes a lot of pressure off. She feels more confident at home. She'd be happy if she could do this for the rest of her life. The problem is she has no typing skills. She's never been handed a computer before. She's been handed tablets before. In the school system or at home, but she has no idea how to type. So all of these assignments that are written assignments, she's much more comfortable with pen and paper, just writing it down. And her teacher's wanting her to type in these things. And we didn't realize that she is a tiny little cute 8-year-old boomer who has no idea how to function with a computer. So like her teacher had uploaded a Word document for them just to click on, made it super simple. And Nora had like 15 to 20 of the same documents open and had no idea how to handle that. So just some of like the basic education that comes with a computer, we're doing that as parents, and we're happy to do that. But I do worry about a lot of the kids out there that don't have that attentive parent, that don't have, we're called educational coaches in our school district, that don't have that educational coach sitting there helping them, or that educational coach who is being raised like that as a grandparent and has no idea how to do it either. Right. I cannot imagine being an educator right now on any level, and having to face all the challenges that are happening. I'm thankful in our house we're making it work and we're making the best out of it, but hats off to all you educators out there, because I can't imagine, and how worried you are for your kids that, you know, why didn't they show up today, or, you know, why did their screen go dark? It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress. So thank you for doing what you do, and being on the front lines when this is really not what you also signed up for.
And Lindsay, you made, you know, just very valid points about just from the technology standpoint. You're right. You know, I would figure it out. You know, if we didn't know how to do it, I know who to call and how to figure it out. But you have some parents who do not have that. They have no clue at all what it is their children are even required to do as assignments, long less how they need to actually turn it in. And so, you know, just kind of very valid points. Anasia has the option, of course, to do handwritten, make a picture copy of it and also attach that. But I don't know what our little, you know, she's 5th grade now. So of course she has, you know, a little bit more experience with a tablet or a computer or things like that. But for your young ones who haven't been typing, that would be very difficult for them to have an assignment like that, you know. And like you said, there are grandparents who had to step in the role for parents who have to work. And so now they're responsible for getting the child through virtual learning. And, you know, most grandparents are in that baby boomer generation.
Absolutely.
Who, you know, there are some who are, yes, they're technically savvy, but there are some who, like my mom just told me the other day, I need to give her like a Facebook tutorial. She has no idea. People are saying they're messaging her. She has no idea where to find it or anything. And so that's what we're talking about, you know? And so, I mean, it's a definite real thing. And so I think one of the things that I think about that after we hopefully are able to transition, you know, out of the pandemic, where academically are some of our children going to be? There are going to be some who are going to be completely fine, but there are going to be others who are going to truly be evidence of that deficit that happened during the pandemic, that are just not going to be at grade level. I mean, that's just, you know, me saying that. I'm quite sure our educators who are currently working in the field probably see it in certain students and just kind of, you know, understand certain things. Would y'all agree that that's kind of, you know, a concern that we're going to have moving forward? Anybody have anything you want to share concerning that?
I can say something. One thing for me, moving into the new school year, I took that into consideration when I did my lesson plans, and I think other teachers are doing that as well, where we are thinking about the students' prior knowledge. And I had to think back to, okay, so I teach calculus. Okay, in pre-cal, they stopped at a certain subject in March. And so now I have to start my lessons with the lesson that they stopped, just assuming that they don't know it, right, and moving forward that way.
And do you feel like most teachers are kind of taking that approach? Just kind of starting where we stopped last year versus this is the subject I'm teaching and I'm moving forward regardless?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good.
I'll say in our district, the people at the district level curriculum people, they created documents that are called unfinished learning. And they put in a lot of work over the summer to set up the curriculum for the next teacher. For example, where third grade stopped learning in each subject area, they set up the document for the fourth grade teacher that she picks up, and it's called the unfinished learning document. So that teacher knew exactly where to pick up for those fourth graders who did not get the remainder of the year for those as third graders. So that helped take a little bit of the pressure off of the teachers.
Right. And I'm gonna shifting and to your point though, Miss Mitchell, and shifting to Coach Spivey, kind of segueing with that. I know that your daughter, I think in her district, they did not continue. There were some school districts that did have some type of shifting of after, you know, March going into a learn from home approach, but there were some school districts that completely did not, you know, have the answer to the call. And so children completely stopped learning in March. So now they've gone from the second week of March through August, you know, some now September with nothing. You know, we already deal with during the summer kind of losing some of that knowledge anyway, but then to go from March now into August and September not having any instruction. And so, you know, to your point, Ms. Mitchell, I know that was going to be really difficult. And so hoping that people would take that approach, looking at it, because those kids didn't have, you know, anything, you know, some not having the access to technology, but then still, you know, to Lindsay's point, not having that accountability person to be able to see their well-being period during that time. And then them not getting the instruction. So Coach Spivey, are the practices for in-person learning working for you and your students at your school?
Well, let me put it like this. Let me start off by saying this. It's everybody's first year.
Right.
All right. The practices that we have to try to practice social distancing still. We can't go in the locker rooms. We can't go in the field house. It's not very beneficial because, you know, when we talk about sports, you have to have some type of hands-on to teach kids certain physical techniques.
Right.
And for the most part, it's the same way in the classroom. You know, you have different type of learners. Right. And that's what's being taken away right now. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of our students are virtual right now. And that's probably the safest thing that a lot of people think. But in our school district, really and truly, the safest thing for us is for a couple more kids to come to school because the classrooms are empty. And you're going to have small interactions that helps most of those kids who have a learning disability, who needs that one-on-one time. And I think that, well, this is just my thinking. I think that the kids who have learning disabilities or IEPs with a lot of accommodations, they need to be at the school, and we should give the option for those kids who have who are more advanced the option to either come virtually or stay at home. Because at the end of the day, I think, well, I'm just speaking for because of my child, my 5-year-old. He's autistic, but he's very smart, but he needs to be at school. He needs to learn how to do stuff socially, but at the same time, he needs to be able to learn how to communicate better with a teacher that's face-to-face, rather than him having to do therapy, having to do all his schooling and schoolwork, virtually. Now we gotta, deal with a 5-year-old who says, I think I'm just gonna do this during this time. You got to try to keep them focused, but then at the same time, you got somebody like my father, who's a retired teacher, who has to try to keep him focused, and that's kind of difficult on both ends.
Right.
But just to get back to what you asked, it's a big hassle. I don't care what anybody says. It's a big hassle because even as a grown person, we all need some type of help, hands-on, and we need to be, we have to be close to each other to kind of figure out certain things. And distance is not the best thing when it comes to learning.
So thank you for sharing that. You brought up some very good points, especially I think talking about the IEPs and the 504s. My education background is education, even though I worked in social work for many years. So trying to figure out certain things for Anasia is easier for me. And so being able to understand her 504 and try to make sure that, I have those conversations with the teacher or have those conversations with the assistant principal or whatever to make sure that she gets what she needs. There are some parents, first of all, who may not have even read the IEP or the 504 or understand it at all, but have made the choice to have their child learn virtually and not really being able to provide that support, what that support looks like. We want the teacher to provide that support, but then when the child is home, guess who's going to have to make sure that the child gets that support? The parent is going to have to make sure. And so I know that there's going to be, again, a deficit there with those children who need that extra assistance. But my burning question for you, Coach Spivey, what are football practices like? Are you all expecting to actually have a season, and what measures are the coaching staff taking to ensure that players remain safe?
All right, so we're going to have a season. Our season actually starts the last weekend in September in the state of Louisiana. It's been a lot of pressure that has been put on the governor, and I'm starting to see where our country, our states, our governors are basically ran by a sport. Like football is the leading.
Absolutely.
I can't even I can't even bring up the word, but football is the biggest influence for money when it comes to, biggest source of revenue when it comes to all states.
Right.
So when you think about funding high schools or funding junior highs, they have to charge to get into the game. You have to charge the concession stand. That's how they make their money. And in a lot of ways, everybody's looking at it as a money aspect and saying, okay, well, we need this so we can do this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, we're still putting our children in a predicament to where, okay, well, We don't know who they're exposed to when they go home. We don't know who they're hanging around when they go home. But then they expect us to be around these same kids every day. Oh, well, you'll be all right as long as you wear a mask. That's not guaranteed.
Right.
I need a hazmat suit. But
I mean, and you're exactly right, especially when you're talking about sweating. Now you're sweating and perspiring and everything, and so and I know from what I just see from football athletes, you just kind of naturally share different things, water bottles and just things like that, kind of naturally, and so.
And that's another big thing. That when it came to the precaution that we had to go through during the summer this year, during the summer, the kids had to provide their own water bottles. So they had the gallon jugs, they had to put their names on. They had to get their temperatures checked at the gate before they came in. It could only be us and the kids. We couldn't have any outside people in. But at the same time, the numbers were limited. So it was 25 people that were allowed in an area. So what we did, we took everything, we put it outside. So they claim that if it's over 80 degrees, it kills the virus, kills the germs, that and the third. But we ended up having close to, I want to say 65 kids. So we ended up dividing them up in the offense, defense, and a freshman group. With us dividing them up, that put us right at that 25 person per group mark. And everybody just had a different thing that they had to do. But it also made workouts longer. Normally, we used to getting up early in the morning, and you get it over with, you done by 10 o'clock. Nah, it was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the evening. We doing full school days during the summer, just for football. We still have to prepare like we're gonna have a season. Then we transitioned to school. School is virtual. For high school, it's A-Day, B-Day, based off of classification and last name. For junior high, it's virtual or face-to-face. And with virtual face-to-face, if you choose virtual, you have to stay virtual for 9 weeks. You can't come to school. If you choose face-to-face, then you can do face-to-face, or you have the choice to go virtual. I want to say about 85% of our kids are virtual. And to me, I like the small classroom, but when it comes to teaching, I'm lost because I don't know if my students are getting everything they need to from virtually. I had to deal with hackers yesterday for the first time. We were doing, I was teaching a class. I had somebody come in, just start playing music, but they were using the kids' names. And I'm just like, what if they're stealing these kids' identity just by doing it? And to go back, our district already had a situation where they had a ransom in the area that was taken from a USB. So we had to stop using USBs and we had to move strictly to Google Classroom. So everything is off of Microsoft now. But it's just, it's overwhelming. I always sit there and say, I'm all right, I'm good. But at the same time, I need to vent sometimes. So our principal has provided on-campus therapy. That's one thing that I could say that's been great about this year. Our principal provided on-campus therapy. So we have counselors on campus if we ever have any problems, any situations, and we need to vent or we're not feeling good that day.
For the teachers?
Yeah, that's for the teachers.
Okay.
That's for the staff.
That's amazing and absolutely unheard of. That is amazing. Wow.
Right.
You took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I said. Never heard of such.
Wow.
But that's what our principal did for us. But our principal is amazing. He's a young guy, 32 years old, but he's dealing with the same situations. He has 3 girls in school, one the same, close to the same age as my youngest daughter, and he has to deal with pretty much the same situations I have to deal with. And he always tells us, like, if you need to talk about anything, feel free to stop by the office, but at the same time, provide these counsels for y'all too. Awesome. And I'm not sure if y'all's area ended up doing this, but during the well, once we got out on March 16th, I remember because we were getting ready for a track meet. The next day, they just told us, well, we're not going to school. We'll resume school on April 14th. Got back to April 14th. They didn't know what to do. And then when May came around, the last day of school, and we moved to phase 2, they made us come back. And then they made the announcement, all teachers will have to teach summer school. During summer school, that's when we found out, okay, well, we got to do Zoom meetings. And then it was like a trial and error. And that's when you found out, okay, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this when it comes to the fall. I want to do virtual, but at the end of the day, it's not that healthy.
So you didn't have a choice about teaching summer school?
You had no choice about teaching summer school at all. So it's like the continual learning that we were just talking about. We could be teaching, but who's to say that that kid was getting any of that information that you were, trying to prepare them, for the 8th grade for the 9th grade.
Wow. So
every day at 12 o'clock, I'm on Zoom. I'm getting ready for a meeting. Well, I'm getting ready for my Zoom meeting to teach a class for an hour a day. Wow. And it was that was overwhelming. You had kids who were just doing who knows what. We had some kids that was at football practice during the Zoom meeting, so they weren't paying attention during class. And, it's a lot. I know I probably said a lot because I took a lot of time.
You needed to say it, apparently, though. You needed this time. I'm glad to be able to provide a safe space for my brother.
Yeah, Dezmond, I was going to piggyback off what you said as far as the Zoom meeting. That is very difficult because as a teacher in face-to-face, I go by body language. If I'm explaining something and I say, hey, does everybody understand? I can see that you're shaking your head, yes, but your eyes are telling me, no, I know you don't. And so in person, I can adjust my lesson based on the body language versus on Zoom is very difficult to gauge if the students are with me, because they can be looking at the screen and be looking at YouTube, on one screen. So it's more difficult to gauge their understanding unless they're verbal and ask questions.
Right.
And that's one thing that I always try to. That was the first lesson that I taught on the first day of school. Because actually this past week was our first week because we didn't go to school after our actual first day due to the hurricane. Our area was affected so bad. So this week we talked about the scientific method and how question was one of the biggest parts. And I told them, I said, the only way that we can solve problems, we have to ask questions. And in science, you're going to get asked a lot of questions.
Right.
And I need you to ask me a lot of questions so I know that you have an understanding. But it's still the same thing. Like, I'll see kids on there have a cover over their head, and then I'm like, hey, can you take the cover off your head? You can't get marked for your attendance if you got a cover over your head.
Like still in the bed, cover
take it off.
Head, or
yeah, like still in the bed.
Okay.
Like they're at home, so they feel like, hey, I don't have to do really too much. All I gotta do is just listen.
Oh, just kind of roll over. Okay.
Right, and you can't monitor what goes on at somebody else's house.
Right.
You can only monitor your classroom, but how can you monitor your classroom virtually?
Right.
So
wow.
It's a lot, but just roll with the punches. I guess that's the only thing we can do.
Well, thank you for being so open about everything. And I had no idea. I was like, yeah, look at my baby brother trying to make this extra money with summer school. I didn't know he didn't have a choice. Wow. Wow. Okay. So Ms. Morris, you've chimed in already. Is there anything else, any other concerns or challenges, particularly from a math? What subject do you teach?
I teach Algebra 2, Pre-Calculus, and Calculus.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, I was a student in high school math that I would not have been able to do virtual math, period. No way. I hardly could do it in person. So I know that I could not have done it virtually. So so from a teaching aspect and from, you know, your students, what are your thoughts?
So again, the engagement piece is really just trying to balance that. Like I'm more of a stickler online. So like Dezmond was saying, how the students will come with their blankets on. I tell my students, hey, I need to see your notebook. I need to see your pencil. I need to make sure that you are taking notes. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to teach you and make sure that you are participating. And so I am as strict as I can be online. And for the most part, they participate with that. But again, the biggest challenge is, do they really understand? You know, I have a few that are verbal, but I do have some students that are introverts and are afraid to ask questions. So that's the most difficult part, just checking for understanding as I'm giving notes and things like that.
Okay. Wow. Hats off to you. Hats off to you for it, definitely. And I'm gonna kind of talk about the parent aspect in just a minute. I want to kind of keep moving because Dr. DJ is gonna have to leave us very soon. But while we're talking about high school, Aaliyah, can you chime in on what your experience is like here in Georgia and how you're adjusting to it?
So yeah, it's personally for me really hard. I decided to do the hybrid option, and I find myself getting because I'm used to either being all at school or when we were online, all online. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, okay, I have to work just as much in school and then come home and do the same thing. You kind of get like discouraged and stuff like that. But as far as being a senior and dealing with the high school, last year I know we got out in May, and we were supposed to get kind of a rundown on what it was going to be like senior year and the stuff that we have to prepare for and stuff. And I know everybody has stuff to worry about with the COVID and stuff like that. But as far as anything like graduation, caps, gowns, senior pictures, I have no idea about any of that stuff. They haven't really talked about it. It's just been all about COVID and stuff. And with me trying to worry about what I'm supposed to put on my, for applying to colleges, like my clubs and everything that I had going on last year. And I was in the process of starting my own club and stuff like that. And all of that got canceled because we're not allowed to do any of that stuff. And all of my extracurricular activities, my volunteering and stuff like that all got canceled also. So I'm just trying to figure out a way that I can still have a good senior year and while dealing with this COVID thing at the same time.
Wow. So. Yeah, that's a lot to think about, because I know you and I went out together to buy your dress for prom that you didn't end up going to. Yeah, and so just kind of thinking from that, perspective, because your junior and your senior year, of high school are milestone years, those years, all the things that, this little one looks at, when we're out eating and the people are there from prom. I can't wait until, I'm a junior or a senior to have that experience. And that, as well she should, but now being in that place and not knowing if you're going to have that experience or not. So I so hate that, for you, and definitely praying for you, just, trying to balance it all, and then just kind of talking about you being discouraged. Please just stay encouraged, and if you need to talk to anybody, just find those people that you can talk to. I'm only a phone call away, text away. You already know that. And so anyway, so just thank you so much for just being vulnerable and just talking to us or whatever. Maybe you can chime in some more. And so while we're in high school, Miss Bagsby, thank you for waiting patiently with us. I know you had something else this morning. I'm going to ask you kind of that same question. What is your greatest concern or your challenges from a counselor's perspective in high school this year? And you're there in Texas.
Yes. Good morning to everyone. Yeah, I work in a high school that, just like everyone else probably has mentioned, facing unknown challenges that we just don't know kind of what will come about. But so far, I think it's just been on our end trying to arrange a school schedule as far as scheduling given this pandemic. Our students have the options of virtual learning or coming to school every day, 5 days a week, just like regular. And so initially we had a set number of students that were to come back, and that changed. And a lot more students came back. So we had to revamp in a matter of days everything that we had originally prepared for, which we weren't even ready for just because of the nature of this pandemic. So that has been a great challenge. Since we started school, we've been in school now probably 3 or 4 weeks. Mental health concerns have already started to come up related to students being at home and us not having that personal contact with them being at school where we can just call them down, have those conversations, engage in counseling sessions, do whatever we need to do to address their needs with them being home, trying to contact them, trying to keep that communication, trying to be in touch with parents just because of distance learning. So that's been a challenge. I think communication overall is also a challenge. And I would say this, as far as our school and as far as our district, there's so much going on, so many issues that everybody from top our district on down are trying to face that communication has suffered. And so, with anything, anytime you're not communicating well, you're going to run into additional challenges. So on my side, I have a teenage daughter, and the challenges for her, she's doing virtual learning at home. And I'm concerned about the social aspect. She's a social butterfly. So I'm worried about her developing socially. So I've been really proactive trying to make sure that she is reaching out to her friends, that even socially distanced, she's able to talk and visit with them. As far as academically, I think she's doing okay, but I think someone mentioned about, as a teacher, having that connection and being able to connect with them face to face. That part of it, I'm concerned about her as a parent, that she has those connections with her teachers, because they don't do live instruction at her school at all. So it's all through their platform, which is Schoology. They get on there, do their work. And so I'm intentionally telling her, you need to go to office hours. So even through an online platform, you can visit with your teacher and have that one-on-one connection.
Wow, yeah. So, so you were saying from your daughter's, the 10th graders' perspective, just not having that social interaction. Can you see it as a mother in her?
So far, I haven't seen anything that I'm overly concerned about, but just in conversations, she might mention, well, this friend is back at school and they're doing this or they're doing that. And it just makes me wonder as a parent, how much of that is she missing? And I've kind of been even thinking about, should we consider at some point in the school year sending her back just for the social part? I think academically, I'm going to make sure she's fine academically. But because I just don't want her to miss out on anything socially as far as her development. I think that's critical academically as well as the social and the mental and all of those other things. So, so far, no, but I'm keeping my eyes on it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's something that I could say. I mean, I jokingly said it, but I also thought maybe it would be, a good thing for, but of course we haven't made that decision. We'll stay. And her response to me is, Mom, I want to stay home. So just pray for me. Dr. Dycus and Jamal, I don't want to leave out the college perspective. As a parent, I think I would probably be even more concerned. And I know there are a few of us here who have that additional concern of having college students. I know, for me last year, my son just graduated from college in the spring, just not knowing what that was going to, look like and everything. But I can't even imagine this year with going back into it. And I think I was just watching on the news. I think it may have been in Ohio or somewhere like that, but there were just some college students that were actually issued citations of like $500 because they were having large gatherings, and they were having the large gatherings even after having knowledge that several of them were positive for COVID-19. And so when the officer put in the information, the name came up flagged for whatever reason, and I'm not sure how that happened, but it came flagged saying that he had tested positive. And so when he was talking to him about, like, are you positive for COVID-19? He said, yes. He says, about 7 of us are. Well, there are over 30 people in this house, and 7 of you know that you are positive for COVID. And so I just had major concerns for that before you come on, Dr. Dycus, I wanted to read real quickly. My goddaughter, Miss Bagsby's daughter, she wanted to be on with us today, but because of COVID and social distancing, one of her weekly classes had to be switched to a Saturday class so that they could switch her. So she wasn't able to come on, and she's in school in Tennessee. And so she wrote this, and I just wanted to read real quick. She says, my name is Clark Bagsby, and I'm a junior biochemistry molecular biology major in Houston by way of Atlanta. I believe my experience returning back to school has been challenging. The adjustment of being by myself is fine because I have done it before. However, I did not realize the effects of being in school during a pandemic had on my mental health. While at school, we have to follow strict guidelines when it comes to COVID. We must wear our mask outside of the rooms. Every 3 weeks or so, we must get tested for COVID. The first couple of weeks on campus, we were quarantined. The dining hall is pickup only. Also, students are allowed sparingly off campus. These measures have been beneficial towards preventing an outbreak of cases like at bigger institutions. However, the stress that comes from knowing there is a confirmed case on campus does not aid in adjusting to the new normal. When the first case broke on our campus, I remember feeling an immense amount of anxiety set in because it was in the same building as I'm in. I felt paranoid and started upping my measures for protecting myself. That alongside school has definitely increased the amount of stress I have. Online learning is challenging to adjust to at first. I was having issues with adjusting to not having the in-person experience. While video camera is a great alternative, it isn't the same as seeing a person's every emotion. In the case of teaching, I feel as if the professor cannot see my confusion, therefore the lecture goes on, while in person the professor would have stopped to address my seeming confusion. Also, I have been experiencing a lack of motivation. I'm not totally sure of where it's coming from, but I am slowly building up my momentum and my motivation as weeks go by and as a routine is established. All in all, while my experience has been a challenging one, I do not regret coming back to campus. I believe this pandemic has made me more self-sufficient in terms of handling my business and school. I am forced to think of new ways to live within the conditions I have been placed in, which I enjoy. It has made me more aware of what else is going on in the world. In light of the recent police killings and COVID internationally, I have been shown how people around the world deal with life and the ups and downs that come with it. I have grown and enjoyed my growth in the pandemic and what it has brought me. And I was like, wow. She said a lot. She said a lot.
That's impressive.
Good job, Miss Bagsby. Good job, Miss Bagsby. So Professor Dycus, can you kind of talk to me? Is some of what Clark's saying, true for what you've seen either last year or just kind of starting out now?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me personally, I have a lot of anxiety, because all of us, our health is in the hands of other people for whom we have no control. You know, if they're not wearing a mask, they're endangering us. But yeah, there's a lot of anxiety, and it breaks my heart, because I think one of the most important things about the college experience is having fun. I really do. It's about making new friends and being away from home in whatever capacity, to whatever degree, and that's really being greatly diminished, and that's just heartbreaking. But I think we all know from college students in our lives or our own experience that a lot of college students are sheltered from the real world, and they don't get the real world. They don't realize that it's out there, and there's no way, I feel like, for me as an instructor to get through to say, hey, the things we're talking about, you know, like I really don't care how you do on this next test. I really don't care how you do in this class, but this is stuff that you're going to need for the rest of your life, and I'm trying to impart that to you. And unfortunately, the pandemic is doing a lot of that for us, making kids realize just how the world operates. And I think that's true for us adults as well. Like, I feel like I understand the United States better than I ever have in my life. And the understanding I've gained comes in terms of disappointment. It's heartbreaking in so many ways. But yeah, but we're all getting an education. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. I thought Lindsay was going to say something.
I'm good at interrupting.
Yeah, and something else I was thinking about while you were speaking, Dawn, is that we have friends who have a son who's in college, and this friend of ours, she's part of a parent board at this university, just like parents, you know, like a discussion Facebook group, something. And she said that on this Facebook parents group, the parents are actively discouraging their children from curbing their behavior, even if they're diagnosed positive. So the parents, and this is a major university, but the parents are telling their students, just carry on as normal. Don't let anybody know if you've been diagnosed.
Refuse to be tested.
Yeah, refuse to be tested. You know, don't just carry on, go on. And that's going to result in a greater loss of life, I think we know. So it's just so complicated, because it's not just teenagers being teenagers, it's also their parents. It's also been highly politicized. It's just, you know, it's everything complicated.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, that's a lot, you know, and I get it. Like, as a parent, you do want your child to have certain experiences, but then we have to take into account what is going on, what are the conditions surrounding what we're dealing with now. And so now it just needs to look different. Yeah, we can still have experiences. Like, we, you know, went to the beach this summer. You know, what do we need to do to still social distance? Like, we were completely aware of what was going on, though we did have an experience. We're still in a pandemic.
Right.
And so,
Can
wow.
I add something there?
Yes.
About the college experience. I'm glad to hear my daughter express herself with those thoughts so well, and it sounds like, you know, she's coping. And that was our initial thought about sending her back or not and making those decisions. Is, you know, even though this is a pandemic and it's a horrible time and very challenging and all of that, she still is becoming an adult. And so just like during normal times, she has to learn how to adjust and be on her own. And, you know, that whole college experience helps to do that. So I felt like even with all of this going on, you still need to get out there and figure it out as a young adult. So I'm happy to hear that. I think the anxiety that Mr. Dycus, I believe it is, just mentioned, I think that's from small children all the way through elderly, just because of all of these challenges that we're facing. But the opportunity in that is that we all learn how to manage anxiety. We all learn different coping skills that, like he said, we can use even well beyond this. There are things that it sounds like my daughter is definitely learning mental health wise, and just how to operate in the world with different challenges that she can use, and that are life skills that can be used forever, and all of us can use it. So that's, you know, looking on the bright side, I think those are some opportunities that we can gain from all of this.
Yeah, definitely.
She's an amazing kid, Mama.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that college part of it too. I think that our kids that we have in college, to be honest, are adapting probably better than their parents are, because that generation seems to be able to just kind of, I don't know, Jamal, you can maybe agree or not. Y'all just seem to kind of take what you're given and kind of roll with it and make the best of it. And whereas we are accustomed to things going a certain way, certain time, this is the way we've done it, this is the way it is. Whereas your generation, my son, who is also a freshman in college, is just like, Mom, you just put the mask on, you wash your hands, and you just do your thing. What's wrong? And I'm having like anxiety and panic attacks and can't even function. And he is just like doing his thing, you know? I mean, and so as a parent, I'm having a hard time because I'm like, do not bring COVID home. He's like, well, I won't come home. I mean, you know, he's just like, it's no big deal. And I can't even go to work. I can't even function. So I think that our kids of that generation are handling it a lot better, but these are also kids who were brought up in a technology generation. They were brought up with the screen time. These things are not new to them, you know, so they tend to do better. But then I worry about them being so careless and so carefree that their lack of judgment may be a little bit different. I don't know. Am I just being an overprotective mother? I'd like to hear what Jamal has to say.
So that's where we were going to go next. We're going to go to Jamal. You know, what about you, Jamal? Did some of what Clark, from what I read, from what Clark said, did any of that resonate with you? And, you know, just kind of tell us about your experience. It's on you.
Yeah, so being a freshman and living on campus, they have a lot of strict rules in place. Like, we can't leave our rooms without wearing our masks. And if you don't live in a dorm, you cannot get in. Like, we can't visit each other's dorms and things like that. So they have those rules in place. But on the other hand, when you're off campus and you decide to do whatever you want to do, that's totally up to you. And living around these kids, like, every day someone gets in an argument because on the weekends, everyone's talking about, like, okay, what party are we going to hit up? Where are we going? And someone always gets in an argument because someone will bring up how we're still in a pandemic and how we need to stay safe. And there's another side of the argument talking about, well, it's not going anywhere, so I'm going to live my life and have fun, and whatever happens, happens. So we have to deal with that because none of us want, like, a lot of us are like, we don't want to go home because people want to party in a pandemic and not, like, be careful and think of others, because some people are, like, really nervous about it because they can catch it easier. And, like, me living out of state, I don't want to go all the way back home because people couldn't, like, keep it together. But they make sure that we all get tested. Like, I'm supposed to get tested this week so they can monitor how many people are getting infected, and if living on campus, how that's doing, how that's responding to it. So it's a lot you have to, like, deal with.
So they're going to be monitoring the number of cases that they have, and then making a decision.
Making decisions to see if living on campus has affected it, if it's really affecting major cases or not.
Okay. I'd be interested.
And we all have the COVID tracking. They put COVID tracking on our phones. So that's how they are able to decide where you've been and where the breakout is occurring. So that happened, I don't know, somebody else could, maybe about a month ago, they downloaded the COVID tracking, and it's on your phone, it's on my phone, it's on everybody's phone. And so they're gearing those locations and being able to see where those hot spots are.
Oh, wow. I mean, they track everything anyway, you know, as if we weren't already being tracked. They
didn't ask our permission, they just did it.
Yeah. Right. Wow.
I got a question real quick.
Oh. Okay.
I got a question for Jamal. Jamal, how is y'all's campus set up? Is it like, well, I went to Grambling State University, and it's pretty much, once you cross over that bridge, it's pretty much an open campus. But I know I've been on other campuses. I've been on Southern's campus. I grew up on Northwestern's campus, and they have gates, so you know exactly where you're at. How is y'all's campus basically set up?
Well, I'm on a campus in a downtown city, so it's literally set up like a city. So everything it's usually like overpopulated, like you cannot get down the streets and stuff. But since COVID, like a lot of people don't even come downtown. Like majority of the population, it's like a big homeless population. So you just see homeless people and students most of the time. So most buildings are closed and they're adjusted hours. Like I tried to go to Chick-fil-A one day and found out that they close at 3. Everything closes like in the middle of the day. So the campus is, it's like one big campus downtown. Like you know that you're on the campus because it'll have the school symbol everywhere. But a lot of the like class halls and auditoriums and stuff are closed. So students just go to the library and stuff that's open during the day.
Wow.
That's how it's set up.
Okay. And what school are you attending?
Well, he can't say.
Oh,
He
I'm
can't
sorry.
say on the Zoom. Well, you can say that.
Oh, okay, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I went to the same school where Jamal is, and it's just right smack downtown, office buildings and traffic and craziness. And I haven't been there since the pandemic. But what I wanted to say is one of the things that breaks my heart about college freshmen is it just under any normal circumstances, it's a tremendous learning curve. And Jamal and I were speaking earlier, and he seems to know what he wants to do with his life. I was really impressed. But that wasn't my experience at all. I came out of high school completely unprepared. My DNA is hardwired to be a procrastinator. So when I came out of high school, I didn't learn any skills that I needed for college. And my mother, when I was in high school, I think, kind of facilitated my procrastination and enabled it. So I got to college and I got my tail kicked for 2 semesters before I decided I've got to get on the ball here. I've got to change my life. But Jamal, and any college freshman is having to learn to be on your own, to be responsible for yourself. And that in itself, just all by itself, is just tremendously challenging. And I certainly found it to be so. So Jamal is having to deal with this social pressure besides just doing his own homework and his own life schedule. So kudos to you, brother. Like, hang in there. Like, it sounds like I really was impressed with what you said, man. You really sounded like you know what you want to do, and you're way ahead of where I was at your age. So just keep doing what you're doing.
And Dr. DJ, I think you spoke to the rest of the mothers on here that we've probably aided in some of our children's habits because we are such control freaks ourselves. So when you say
it's hard to pull back. Yeah, it's tough.
But it seems as though everything that we've kind of been discussing, though, especially after I read Clark's notes, we keep in everything, all the conversations that have been had. In the first conversation with Dawn of a New Day, I discussed the pandemic and the racial pandemic, and then we discussed mental health and the effect on the family. And even through this, talking about going back to school, we still seem to see the common thread in 2020 as being mental health, right? How are the various schedules and experiences affecting, and this is for anybody, the social and emotional aspect of those involved, especially in the home? Can anybody speak to that as far as their home is concerned?
Dawn, you had cut out a little bit.
Okay. I was just talking about, can anybody speak to how the social and emotional aspect of what we're dealing with, talking about the different schedules? I know some people have, children in person, children on virtual, but how do you see that social and emotional aspect affecting your home?
I'll start.
Okay, I'll go after Tom.
Okay. Yeah. In the spring, when all of this first started and everybody was pretty much on shutdown, it was interesting to see, I had my college daughter home and she was in her room doing her online classes, and the teenager in one room during her 9th grade classes. I was in the office trying to manage my job responsibilities. My husband, he was still having to go to work every day. And so that was challenging because we were all worried, well, don't bring COVID home. and nobody knew what was going on. So it was just a lot of anxiety, trying to manage everything going on. I was stepping into mother role probably way more than ever, because I'm okay, make sure you're doing this and make sure you're doing that, and trying to balance my work, which was stressful in itself. So that, to me, that was pretty challenging. Of course, we made it through, and it seems like the teachers were a lot more flexible in the spring. This summer, I found myself really kind of sad and feeling really depressed with having to be at home all of the time and not having to work when we were out, just missing that normalcy of a routine, and or even during the summer being able to go out and do things that you enjoy, go swim and go to the mall, where you couldn't do any of that. You were just at home. So that was really challenging. But when it was time to go back to work, I actually was excited to go. I was worried about COVID, but I was glad to get back into that routine, I think, for my own mental health and socially, missing talking to people. I remember getting with some of my girlfriends, and we did a couple of Zooms just because we would get together and go out to eat and this and that. I miss those kinds of things. So being able to visit with them, even if it was virtually, was very helpful for me socially and mentally, and just adjusting to this whole thing. And now I kind of feel better again, been back to work, everybody's back in school. We feel better with where we are with COVID. So
yeah. Ms. Barnett, you were gonna say?
I said I was going to agree with everything she just said. My household, in the spring, there were 4 of us at home, and you have 2 introverts and 2 extroverts. 2 of us were going crazy because we like being out, we like being around people, and to have to stay home. At first it was fun, we did family movies, played games, and did all that to keep ourselves busy. But after a while, you're like, okay, this is boring. What's next? But on one hand, my son, who is an introvert to a T, but needs to be in a structured classroom environment to succeed in school, was struggling. He didn't care about the social aspect of not being at his university anymore. It was, I'm a physics major and I need help. I need, his professor needing assistance. So he was struggling on the inside, and noise, and like my daughter and I are playing games, and he's like, quiet, I'm trying to do my work, So our household was totally chaotic, It was hard. And I, like Ton, looked forward to going back to school in August because I wanted an out. I wanted to be able to get out of my house. I couldn't do anything else but to say that I have to go to work. I can't stay home. I have to. So I was excited. I wore my mask, all the PPE, everything that we had to do in order to stay safe. I was willing to do that if that meant that I could get out of my house and have some adult time and conversation with other extroverts who enjoy being around people as well. So it has been difficult to adjust, and I think everybody has adjusted. Even now I'm 6 people in the house, 3 of them online, about to be 4 online. It's quite an adjustment, but my extrovert child has gotten a job. So she's learning virtually at home with school, but she's excited about going to her job every evening just to push a cart out to somebody's car, just so she can get some people interaction. So it's been good.
All right. And I think I was the opposite of you all. I was fine in March. Like I was like, I liked everything slowing down, and I just felt, so complete and so whole. But come about June or July, it was too much. It was too many people here for too long. Because by that time my son was back home from college. So now, and he still got that college spirit in him. And so I'm just like, oh goodness. But here recently, I think I went through that, just not being able to have that degree of separation and having to be all things to all people. And so just yesterday, Anasia was saying, oh, Mommy, you're always just so busy. You're just, you play the nurse so well, and you just play the teacher so well. Or, you're just doing it all. And I said, yeah, I'm playing the nurse and the teacher so well that I can't play Dawn well. right? And she said, well, when you go to sleep. And I said, oh, thank you for when I sleep. Right. Yes, I can be myself in my sleep. And that's why I sleep in sometimes, so I can still be myself for a little longer, because when I wake up, I'm gonna have to be somebody else. So, and that's really what it has been. And so just trying to now, like I said, trying to find that balance, and I have to have some outside time. So now, where I said before, I'm not going to go, to the gym at all because it's just not safe. Now I have to find the hours that not anybody is there, because I'm going to have a time where I'm not with everybody else. I can't. I love them and I love being whoever I am to them, but those have time limits.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, I was just like you. In March, I was fine. I mean, because my life is constantly on the go. So it forced me to sit down and rest. I mean, like, I don't think I got that much sleep ever in life. So I was good. And I went to the doctor for my just regular annual checkup. And she said, how are you holding up? Because most of you, well, you probably don't know, I suffer from depression. And so, I have to go every year to get checked up and to see how the meds are working. And, she was like, well, how are you doing? And I was like, I'm good. And she's like, are you taking your meds? I was like, I don't feel like I need them. Like, I feel like all I needed was sleep. And she said, well, Brittany, I'm just going to tell you, you may be okay right now, but, things may not be okay down the road. So just take your medicine. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll be good. But like, come around maybe June, I started to feel different. I think it was Miss Barnett said that, you play the games, the family games, then the daycare shut down. And I think that's when my world changed. So, having a 2-year-old at home, stay-at-home moms, hats off. That's not my calling. Jesus did not call me to do that. But I was forced to be a stay-at-home mom for about a month with a 2-year-old who is very active and likes to be around people. But, for the first couple of weeks, it was okay. I mean, I found stuff to do. We got the jumping beans and we got water slides, all that stuff was fun. But then it's like, okay, now, are we still in the pandemic? I mean, I thought it would be over by now. Is the world still shut down? What am I supposed to do? So I felt myself going into a depression, because I am used to being on the go so much. And being forced to sit down too long was too much for me. So I did have to tell my friends, I mean, when the restaurants come up, I need brunch and I need a little spirit to go with my brunch, because like Dawn, I felt like I was trapped in my head. Like, I felt like the walls were closing in on me. You can't go anywhere except outside. And then it was hot. And so, it was just, I was not in a good space. That happy place that I was in March, it completely flipped on me in the middle of summer. And I too had to go on vacation. I said, we have to get out of this house. Like, I have to get out of here, because I am literally drowning in my own thoughts, but they're not even productive thoughts. Like, I don't even know what I was thinking. Like, I mean, it just, and the silence, like, it was too much. So I was happy to go back to work, but I did want to teach online in my classroom. Like, it's like, you may have to, go into the building and teach online. That's fine.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with going in the building as long as it's just me. No, I was fine with that. But when they told me, that we were going to have to do I would have to be a face-to-face teacher. And the way that the schedule worked out, I had to see every child in the building. And so I would see every child in the building by Friday. So I would have 3 classes on Monday, 3 different classes on Tuesday, 3 different classes on Wednesday, 3 different classes on Thursday, and 3 different classes on Friday. My anxiety shot through the roof. And, and I told my principal, like, I get it, like, because, I'm considered a connections teacher. So all kids have to go through connections, but we've got to do something different, because exposing us to every child in the building is more than what my diagnosis can handle. I mean, I'm very upfront with him about that. So we've done some creative things with the scheduling. And I'm really thankful that I do have a principal now who heard me. And so it won't be as many students that I'm exposed to. I'm still exposed to a variety of students. So it's not just like one age group. Where, you know, sixth grade, you're only exposed to sixth grade, and seventh grade, I still have sixth, seventh, and eighth graders that I have to be face to face with, but it's not as many as before. So we're still working on that whole mental health piece. You know, like I said, I can speak on it because I lived it. You know, I know what the pandemic did to my mental health. So it really is a challenge. I mean, every day is a struggle. It is a true struggle every day. So, yeah, I understand where the college students are coming from. I understand where I know some other people spoke about their mental health, so I get it.
Yeah.
Brittany,
Thank
you're
you for being
so
brave
right. It's just,
yeah.
Thank you for expressing that and being transparent. I too have struggled like lifelong depression. So the pandemic just compounded it. And it looked all too familiar of dark places that I've been in my life. It was easy to isolate. It was easy to stay in the bed. It was easy not to pull the covers down. And you have to work really hard to just move from the bed to the recliner. Like, that's a struggle for me, where some people don't get that. But when you're isolated in your home on quarantine, taking that 10 feet was like, I don't know, God, if I can do this today. I just don't know. So this whole thing is just adding more. And then the anxiety peaked when the thought of going back to school, and my interaction too is with everyone on campus. You know, not just a classroom of kids, but teachers, students, parents, everyone on campus. And so, you know, getting depressed by thinking about it, getting anxious about it, and it was just too much. So bring on more meds, and I'm just going to stay at the house, and that way everybody will be safe, you know, because that wasn't going to work for me, you know. And so I applaud y'all who struggle and still are facing it, because like you said, my diagnosis, that was more than I could handle. It was just too much. It was going to be too much, and it was going to be harmful to myself and my family mentally, you know, and then you have that risk of being exposed physically. So it was just more than I could just even wrap my mind around. And so I felt like my body said, just sit still, just sit still right now.
I sometimes what we do just with decisions in life, we'll make a decision concerning something and leave somebody out, like the most important component. So we made or I didn't make it, but a decision was made concerning, you know, children and families, and not considering the people who are going to have to teach them. And so I think that component was left out. And so we were concerned about, you know, children's mental health, and we were concerned about, families, you know, working families, people having to get back to work or whatever, but never understanding, first of all, that the teachers have families too. You know, even with those who don't have children, you know, they're still interacting with families, siblings, or parents or something. And so I think that was just a part. We were trying to make it convenient and better for everybody else, but that was a huge component for teachers who still have children. That if I have to be a teacher and be an in-person teacher, but I'm trying to make a decision for my kids to stay at home, you know, that's just a lot. So I know that Coach Spivey talked about, you know, what his principal is doing, and still kudos, you know, to him for making that available for his staff. But does anybody else have those options out there, you know, of school districts that are doing things to step in for teachers, students, and parents that are not okay? And if so, are there any other examples, you know, of that?
One thing, DJ had to leave, but one thing he was saying at the college level is the dean of the college sent an email out pretty early in the game of in the summer, trying to figure out how are we going to reopen, and just asked two questions. One, do you feel safe, comfortable coming back in the classroom? And two, what are your concerns? And just left it open-ended. And they're trying to address all those things for all the teachers' concerns. And one thing that's just been really fantastic in his school is, you know, one of the professors that's there, his wife is doing chemo every other week, and there's no way in the world he can go and expose himself to students. And his daughter also teaches at the same school, so they're 100% virtually teaching online. And that was made acceptable for them.
Right.
You know, it was one email when we found out we'd been exposed to COVID to go 100% virtual, and that was okay. And I think more of what I've heard from teachers, I grew up in a family of educators, so just in hearing what my family and friends have had to say, the support hasn't necessarily come from the school system, but like of those individual in that school. So it's coming from their administrators, it's coming from the fellow teachers, it's coming from that team that they're on, and that's where they're getting that support, is what I'm hearing in most public schools. But I'd be interested to see how like private schools or colleges were doing it differently.
Okay. Anybody else on that same thing?
At our school, I don't feel like there's a whole lot of support for staff as far as that. I think as a counselor, thinking about students, we've done a bunch of things, but on the other side, and listening to Coach Spivey and some of the other educators here talk about what their districts are doing, it's got me to thinking, you know, maybe I need to take some of these ideas back to support teachers more. But on the student side, when this first happened, we immediately jumped in and were providing resources, and we were having Zoom group counseling meetings. We were meeting individually with students that we were already concerned about, that we had been seeing individually. We were making personal phone calls just to check on them. Really trying to be there for our students, but on the staff side, it's not been where it should be.
Okay. And so that was just kind of the last question there, or just kind of last stand. You know, are there some things that we can kind of conclude with that would possibly be some resources for teachers, parents, or students that we can share to assist those facing challenges, so that they can try to get through this with the least amount of anxiety and trauma as possible? Are there some things that anyone can share that might be helpful to others who see this?
One thing that I think that I had to stop, I guess I wanted to be upset with the school district because I felt like they weren't doing enough for us as teachers, but I just kind of took it in my own hands to see, you know, to do what I needed to do for my personal mental health. So with that being said, you know, making sure that I do take my medication every day, and making sure that I sign up for my own counseling outside of this, making sure that I exercise, because, and that's one thing that I haven't been doing, but I know that being able to exercise helps with my depression. And so I've reached out to a couple of my friends in my support circle and said, you know, I really need you to push me to exercise more, like on a regular basis, because it really helps with my depression. Because you know, it gets you out, the endorphins, and I'm kind of like you, Don. I was like, I don't know about going to the gym, you know, but you know, I find those early mornings or really late, it's not that many people there, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of willing to risk it for my mental health. So I've just tried to take better care of myself, because I'm no good to my students when I'm not at my best. I'm no good to my family when I'm not at my best. And one thing that I do know about myself is that when my depression is high, I'm very irritable. And so it comes out in ways that I'm not proud of. And it's normally to people who are closest to me. And, you know, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I don't want my depression to come out aggressively towards her. So I really had to take a step back and say, you know, Brittany, you got to do some things different, because they're not going to do it for you. You know, they're not giving you those tools and those resources. So let's pick up the phone and say, hey, you know, I might need you to up my dosage back to where it was, and I might need to start those counseling sessions again, just to make it through this time.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for being transparent about, that Brittany, but it's so important. I think now more than ever, we truly as individuals have to really be mindful of our own mental health and well-being. Because like you were saying, nobody else is going to do it for us. And so we have to make sure that, that we're doing what we need to do for ourselves. Because like you said, if we're not our best selves, we can't be our best selves to anybody else. So that's so true. So does anybody else have anything they want to, okay, go ahead. Yes, Ms. Manker. Oh, and Ms. Haley, once Ms. Manker finishes, yes, go ahead and chime in. Go ahead.
Okay, but like Brittany said, this school year has had me a lot of being irritable. And I find myself kind of being more irritable than normal, and it runs off into my students because I have to make sure it's anxiety on me because do you have your mask on? Are you touching this person? Don't touch this student. Don't share those items. Okay, don't go over here. Don't go over there. So that's a little bit of more anxiety on me. But one thing that I'm learning to do in this school year is to serve better. My students had an activity last week before the Labor Day weekend to tell me what they want to be when they grow up. So, I had doctors, I had teachers, I had firefighters, and then one of my students came up to me and said, I want to be a servant. And I said, okay. And I didn't know if she knew what a servant meant. So I said, okay, draw a picture. Let me see if you know what that means. And sure enough, she drew a picture and she said, Miss Manker, this is me serving people food. And right then and there, I think that was truly God trying to encourage me to say, Ashley, you need to serve them. I know the circumstances are hard. I know I may have a lot of pressure, but I need you to serve them like you're serving me myself. So that's kind of my mindset now going into school every week is help me to serve these kids, God, and not get too irritable about the safety and health. Yes, the safety and health is important, but I have to also make sure that I'm serving these kids with love.
Come on now. That just provoked an emotion in me. Like, yeah, seriously. And I think that's also a good approach to do, and that being our prayer. Yes, looking at our mental health, but then help me to serve. Because just like this is the first time of me having to parent it during a pandemic and her having to be a student in it's everybody's first time, And so as people are making decisions and things, we don't know if it's gonna work. We don't know why, because we've never done it before, And so nobody knows it. So we have to have that measure of grace towards people, towards those that are making the decisions. Because I can't imagine having to make that, it's enough trying to make the decision for my house. But then when you're talking about, magnifying that and, looking at Ms. Barnett, you got to think about, not just your house, but then a school. And so then you take it, to your superintendent. Now she got to look at a whole district, So I definitely am going to think of that different, having that measure of grace towards people who are making a decision, and definitely knowing that we're having this conversation, but some of them are not able to truly have a vulnerable conversation and to express those things that we're able to talk about right now. So yeah, so thank you for sharing that, and kudos to that. So I hope she got an A for being a servant. For being a servant, especially when I don't care what the picture looked like. Sometimes those are God's little things. Let me show you this. Okay, that's good. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else before we conclude?
Hey, just as somebody who works in mental health, just thank you guys for sharing what you shared. And sometimes that really does inspire other people to work on their mental health in ways that they hadn't maybe thought about before, or encourage them to do something. So really, really, really thank you for sharing your struggles. And you're welcome to add me on your Facebook if you need just a place to vent or talk. You're welcome to do that too, because we all need a bigger support system, especially right now.
Right, absolutely. Miss, thank you, Lindsay, so much for acknowledging that. You're absolutely right. Miss Haley, did you have
a teacher that I know wanted to desperately participate in this panel, And I just wanted to add to what Dawn was saying, make sure that we show them grace, because she was very afraid to stand up for herself and other coworkers. And she doesn't want teachers to be afraid. She doesn't want to be afraid. So through all of this, we, those of us who are in leadership positions, admin, we need to show them grace and give them safe spaces to be able to share how they're feeling, because they're people too. And she feels that she can't stand up and say what she believes. I actually wrote it down because of humiliation and shame and underhanded remarks by administration or people who are higher than school admin who are not walking in their shoes every day. So we need to be careful and always show grace to the people who are on the front line and create safe spaces for those people.
Absolutely. No, I'm always for safe spaces. That's right. So good. Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead. Does anybody have anything else? Are we good? And I know I'm laughing at Miss Barnett. You're not the only one on the panel who was also in the same place doing that. So, okay. Well, all right, everybody. This has been another conversation. I hope that everyone has found this dialogue helpful as well as somewhat therapeutic. And so we want to be able to share this. I apologize. I think I actually figured out what ended up happening. We ended up using a different link versus our personal link. And I think I had to use my personal link in order to go to Facebook Live. So I asked you, panel, please. This is being recorded. And so I'll definitely share it in my places, but I will also send you the link. And please share it with your other teacher friends, student friends, parent friends, because I really do think that this has been a valuable conversation. And I'm glad that we still went along with it, regardless of, how technology or ignorance may have played a part in us being able to go forward. But please do share it, and just know that I appreciate you all so much for taking y'all's time on a Saturday. I normally do conversations on a Friday, but that started during the summer. And now that school has started back, I just know Friday evenings don't look good for people anymore. So so I thank y'all for spending your Saturday morning / afternoon with me, even for those of you who also had some chapter meeting stuff going on. Look, I thank y'all active ones so much. So anyway, but if nothing else, if nobody has anything, I appreciate you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording at this time. So bye to those who will watch.